Okay, it's time to call the meeting to order. If you would, please stand for prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Heavenly Father, we thank for this day and all the many blessings. Lord, we thank you for giving us an opportunity again as a council to come together, Lord, and we pray that we make all our decisions in accordance with thy will. Lord, we pray for our country and the men and women that serve it, and especially the ones on foreign soil, that you will put thy hand around them, bring them back home safe and sound, if it be thy will. Lord, we pray for the sick, and especially the ones that we know, that you will restore them back to their much wanted health, if it be thy will. We ask you to forgive us of our sins. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Let's see here. Chief Ray Smith, you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Okay, roll call, please, Ms. Phyllis.
Alderman Clough.
Present.
Alderman Dale. Vice Mayor Dotson.
Here.
Alderman Elder.
Here.
Alderman Langford.
Here.
Alderman Linder.
Here.
All present except Alderman Dale.
All present but Alderman Dale. So we have enough for a quorum. Need a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Alderman Bill Linder.
I'll second it.
Second by Alderman Bruce Elder. Any discussion? All for the motion, let it know by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion pass. Additions or deletions to the agenda? I'd like to add one. The fire department has asked to speak, and I'm going to add them to, one gentleman asked me to speak, and I'm adding him to number 5, if that's okay. So.
I'd also like to discuss about the pay scale.
Yeah, that's in number 5.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there's a motion and a second. Motion by Alderman David Langford, second by Alderman John Clough. Any discussion? All for the motion, let know by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion pass. So I'm putting on their pay scale fire department because that's who asked. All right, that'll be item number 5. I don't have any old business. Under new business is item number 1, downtown revitalization, Mr. Gene Gant and or Ms. Shannon Cantrell.
Good evening. A couple meetings ago, I talked with y'all about some grants that we had received at the chamber, and one of those was the rural videography and photography grant that we received that allowed a company out of Knoxville to come to Overton County, and they did a lot of photography, they did a lot of video while they were here, and the state of Tennessee paid for it for us. And all of the rural communities in Tennessee were eligible for this grant, and they are doing them all in shifts. And we did finally get ours done. Got the final video back a few days ago. I have shared it with my board of directors, and tonight I want to share it with y'all. This has not been released to the public yet. We wanted to make sure the leaders of the community were able to see this video first. So I'm going to show that to you in just a moment. Also, we were able to purchase a destination spotlight for Livingston and Overton County on the Tennessee Vacation website. And once we show the video, I will take you to that website as well, so you can see the advertisement highlighting Livingston and Overton County and show you how to get there, so you can see it and share it on your own. And pray that this works. I've struggled every time I've shown this so far. Okay, here we go.
Wander from the calming waters of Dale Hall Lake across the famous Cumberland Plateau to find the best of small-town charm, fueled by friendly faces, creative energy, and a love of the outdoors. Take a wild ride or a slow paddle. Explore history. Indulge your sweet tooth. And discover delicious flavor notes. Play hard. Splash around. Hear the music we're famous for. And be part of the story in this place we call home. Taste fabulous flavors. Get in touch with nature. And learn how things are made. Come face to face with the unforgettable and spend the weekend making memories. Remember what's important. Find harmony with the ones you love. Get away from the noise and into the feeling that life comes alive here in Overton County and Livingston, Tennessee.
We've done a lot of things at the chamber since I've been a part of the chamber, and this is probably my favorite thing so far. I think it's great. I'm glad y'all liked it too. My plan with this is to use our ARPA funds that we'll be getting from the state over the course of the next couple years. They have awarded us $95,000 over the course of the next 3 years. So they expect us to do something very transformative with that money. So I'm not really 100% sure where this will end up yet, but I do feel like using a little bit of that money and putting this out there for others in the region, state, and even in the southeast area to see would probably be a good option. Okay, I'm going to go to the Tennessee Vacation website now. Bear with me. Now, this particular ad was paid for using some of our hotel motel funds that we get from the county. This was money that we received from them during the 2022-2023 fiscal year. So to get to our destination spotlight, you will choose cities and regions. You will choose Middle Tennessee. And then if you'll see down there at the bottom, it says Live Your Best Life in Livingston, Overton County. Oh, there you go. Now, we provided all of the videos, all of the photos were photos that were given to us through that grant that I just spoke about. And one of the travel writers with the state of Tennessee wrote this as well. So I'm just going to scroll through here. I'm not going to read it because it would take too long. I would love for y'all to go check it out yourself and read about it. But it touches on all of our tourism assets locally. Let me get rid of these. Talks about 1806, Central Park, Live in Livingston, Standing Stone, Dale Hollow Lake, Waterloo Falls, Cub Mountain ATV Park, Muddy Pond, Holly Ridge Winery, the Wine Trail, Livingston Lofts, the Gill House, South Church Studios, Steel Coop, Wayne's Grill. And then it talks about our mural trail. And that's it. Now, when you get to the bottom of the page, you can see all of the other partner pages for Livingston, that Livingston has as well. So there's lots of really cool stuff here. So we are definitely proud of this. I just wanted to share with y'all all of that, and that's all I have.
Do they provide you with analytics so you can see how often it's visited and that sort of
Yes.
thing as well? Good.
Yes, and everything will link back. Like if they click on something, it links back to our website as well, the chamber website. Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gant?
All righty, I've given y'all a copy of a report from our engineering consultant, Ray Evans, who's not here tonight. But I'll kind of hit the highlights of that if I could. The multimodal access grants, the sidewalk grant, the final right-of-way documents were reviewed by TDOT in Chattanooga. And Mr. Evans is meeting with TDOT Region 2 on Thursday, August 8th, in Chattanooga to push the road certification forward. And he said that is the final step for a notice to proceed with construction on that. The Transportation Alternatives Grant Program, the courthouse grant, consultants and their electrical sub-consultants and the staff at UCMC and the City of Livingston met last week to review concerns and issues. As a result of that meeting, it was determined the existing fountain needs to be renovated in place rather than slightly located. And Mayor Hayes, you may have some extra on that. I'm not sure. He had a note here that you may expound on that. There was an increase in cost of materials since the project inception, and the project is a bit over budget, so we're working with the consultant to determine viable modifications to the project without diminishing the project's objectives. The Appalachian Regional Commission, the South Church Street grant, UCMC has advised us that the transformers and vaults will not be available until mid-December. So as a result, we've delayed the start of that construction to January 2024. That's when those will be available. We didn't want to start it and then just stop and wait for vaults. The Transportation Alternatives Program, the grant, Cedar and Little Streets, cities submitted all the contract documents to TDOT, and we're waiting on concurrence and contract execution with that one. The TVA Invest Prep grant, we were not successful in our application. However, TVA and its consultant encouraged us to apply for a T and ECD site development grant, and they had participated in a webinar related to that grant last week. So that's all the update on the construction project.
Yeah, just to talk about what Ray is discussing, but you've hit it, and it's what I call the junction boxes, but it's the vaults that all the electricity will be put in down there, and they're saying it'll be Christmas, more than likely, that they're on back order, and it's just going to take a while to get the materials. And as we all know, the cost of the material has went up since we have first started this project. So these projects have been going on now for quite some time. So I think inflation's kind of got us a little bit. So, but that's what Ray knew that I could talk about. We met with Lowe's Construction last week on the square. So yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Gant? Okay, hearing none, job well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2, we have with us Mr. Jason Duke, our airport chairman, and Mr. Josh Aberson from Barge Design, our engineers.
Hi, Mayor, Council. My name is Josh Abramson. I'm with Barge Design Solutions, and I'm here with you today to request that the city not necessarily Well, to basically establish a deadline to conclude good faith negotiations with property owners adjacent to the airport. I don't have a specific date in mind, but basically we're at a point to where we need to establish a deadline of which the conversations need to be finished. The airport is required by federal regulations to resolve a safety issue associated with the current fence location. The underlying issues with it is it penetrates one of what we call our navigable services, basically makes it a hazard to public safety with airport use, and to not resolve the issue basically can jeopardize future funds as well as the operation of the airport. So the solution that was presented is a strip of undeveloped land adjacent to the airport to relocate the fence and to establish what we call a wildlife barrier. We're not wanting to go any further beyond what is required to mitigate the issue at hand. There are 4 property owners that we have been in contact with and established dual communication with. One of them, we're actively closing on the deal right now for the purchase of the property. The other, we feel that we're close. The owner is wanting specific information as it pertains to their title and their plot of land. So we're trying to get them everything that we can to make sure that we do keep that good faith effort. And we have 2 other property owners that they counteroffered outside of our negotiable range that were allowed by state statute. One of which on those counteroffers were terms not allowable by federal statute as it associates what we call our sponsor assurances at the airport. So in conclusion, that's the request. There's kind of the information associated with that, so I'm available for questions beyond that as well.
So exactly, how are we operating now, Mr. Aberson? Are we got a full license, or what's?
You have what's called a conditional airport license, and it's due to the obstructions that are noted, as well as, due to the obstructions that are noted, and to relocate this would mitigate that issue, or one of the issues associated with the airport license. But like I said, the city can decide to do nothing about it, and it does jeopardize future funds as well as the operation of the airport.
Do we need a mediator, or?
We have one. So we actually contracted with a company that specializes in negotiations with property owners and does this statewide. We're currently under contract with them at other airports, and this particular person, the representative from this company, has successfully negotiated one of the purchases on this particular project alone. And we think we're about to conclude another one. We hope so. So that's what this group specializes in, is having those conversations and keeping the rapport with the property owners and trying to get the information that they want and relaying it in a manner to which we can reply to their request, as well as they can understand the scope and the requirements that are stipulated upon us as an owner of a public airport.
So you mentioned that not only was the price one of the issues, but also some assurances.
Yes, sir.
Could you be specific?
Yes, the request is for exclusive rights to one of the airport facilities for a lifetime lease, and that's just not allowable by statute.
And what about the price?
Well, the price was outside of the range on one of them, and the other is for the purchase of all their property, of which we just can't do within the footprint that's allowed. We just don't have the available funds from the grant to do that.
So were they not willing to sell the strip? It was either buy the whole piece or get nothing.
Buy the whole piece, get nothing, and we want exclusive rights to one of your facilities.
Was there any interest at all in just the piece of property that we need for a higher price than what you were allowed to negotiate?
So what we did is we presented basically the appraised value and presented it to them and received the counteroffers. And what we're going to do is that honestly, we have not replied yet. We want to reply with, we are not allowed to do that. And at the same time, we're just now getting to this point with this property owner, and it's an extended time. So we would like to establish, we're going to reply, and we're going to give them ample time to come back with a counteroffer if they so choose. But basically so that we conclude this portion of the project. Because not only is it the long-term effects, we're pushing every other planned project down the line, and expense continues to go up associated with those as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And you say this will affect whether or not we might get future grants?
It does, and this year specifically, the Tennessee Department of Aeronautics has started establishing a grading scale because the grants associated with the airport statewide are getting more competitive. So they're going to ask you, do you have a conditional license or not? Do you have any outstanding projects or not? Do you have any active grants that need to be closed or not? These are all weighing factors on future development projects as we receive these grants. And you know, those grants come anywhere from 90 to 95% of a match for there. So it's a dime and nickels on the dollar when we get money back from them.
Yeah, I would say since, and Jason, you've presented many times before I was an alderman, all of these monies that we've gotten in grants, so we need to get this done.
Millions. We've got millions in grants from federal and state funding. So exactly, are you needing the permission from us to move forward, or Mr. Anderson, or what are you
I think
needing
it was
from us?
more, we'll have to leave it to your attorney if it's an official action, but basically, you know, we would like, in conjunction with the city, to propose a deadline at which, if it's acceptable to the mayor to go ahead and say, yeah, that looks like that's a reasonable time to conclude, well, we're still continuing to call our good faith efforts on here, and we'll continue to all the way to the end. Our goal is to wrap this up without any future proceedings.
Yeah, and in the event that you don't come across a negotiable deal, then we have some action to take, is that correct? Or?
Well, yes, sir. It's the city's decision whether or not they want to pursue eminent domain, or, you know, like I said, once again, you could do nothing. I don't want to say your only choice is that, but your other choice is to do nothing, and then we have we'll have to figure out what we're going to do past that point. But, you know, all of our efforts and with the specialists that we have as part of our team, this is what they do. This is what they do for airports, I mean, really across the South. And this is for commercial airports as well as, you know, airports in our backyard like it is here today, and our other clients as well.
Would you think a reasonable time is 30 days, 60 days, year end? Give us some guidance.
Let me get back with the negotiator. Okay, maybe I probably should have come with that date on there, but let me get back with the negotiator. Is her specialty on there, and say, yeah, this is pretty much a good, reasonable time to conclude, because, you know, we've been in these talks for 8 months now. So, you know, it's the, what is it? I'm trying to remember the. It's okay. Basically, you know, the task will expand to the time provided on there. So, yeah.
Have the landowners said no, or have they named a price?
We have not. None of them has said no.
Okay.
And you know, like one is in active closing, the other we think we can close, and the other two countered with just out of our range.
Did we, I know we based this on the appraisal, right, Curtis? The price for the land was based on the appraisal?
Yeah, fair market value.
And was it just like, that's it, fair market value, nothing else?
There is a negotiable range, and we actually, on the one that we're closing, were able to work within that negotiable range. So we have been able to go into the coffers of the negotiable range on one of the closures, on the active closure we have right now.
And the people that are negotiating from them obviously are aware that eminent domain is a possibility.
We would make that clear in our counteroffer letter, or that our response to their counteroffer. That would be part of, and we'll work with the city attorney and we'll make that clear as part of that discussion. No surprises.
Yeah, I think you was going to come back with a date, or should we just go ahead and say by the end of the year, or what are?
I would, with that particular date, I'm going to defer to our sub that does the negotiations. Okay. And I can't speak to your proceedings, but I think that if the city can agree to, I think that's, if we can come back with a reasonable piece that we don't have to have any further vote or city action, we're looking to, like I said, no surprises. We're just looking to move forward, and we want to go ahead and establish a deadline, and then we'll let that sub-consultant that specializes in this help us to determine when that is, so that we can make sure that we're doing everything we can to avoid any further proceedings and close these property purchases out.
Can you come back next month and give us an update, or what do you?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I'll be happy to do it. I'm going to be here often.
If there is an update. If there's not an update,
then no. I will. I'm going to be here next week already for something else, and then we're going to be kicking off a project. So let me get back to you on that.
Sure.
But as updates come up, or as we're able to close, I'll be happy to present and give updates on that. Sure.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any questions from our engineer?
Could we authorize you that if he gets back to you with a date from the subcontractor person first, as long as that date is prior to year end, to allow you to accept it, or do we need to wait till the next meeting?
No, I think you can give me the authority to do it.
I'd like to make that motion. I think that's a reasonable time period.
All right, motion by Alderman, or Vice Mayor Ken Dotson to allow our negotiator to come back with a date to me, and then we'll use that as a letter that will be sent out to the property owners. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Bruce Elder. Any discussion?
By year's end.
By year's end.
Yeah. That date is.
Now, for the discussion part, I don't think he said year's end. He said he was going to leave that up to the negotiator.
I think that's quite reasonable.
But I think that is reasonable.
Yeah.
Right. So, any more discussion? All for the motion, let it know by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion passed. Thank you, Mr. Aberson.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Do you need to speak with our attorney before you leave, or do you?
No, we've been in communication.
Okay.
So we'll continue to keep that dialogue.
Keep it short. He's expensive.
Yes, sir. I can do that. Yeah, thank you guys for your time.
Yeah, thank you. If you'll push that button, Mr. Aberson, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. It's Bill Winningham, say just a little humor. Item number 3, 3A, camera policy, Chief Ray Smith.
Thank you, Mayor and Board Alderman, for the opportunity. We have been going through our policy and procedure, and here a while back we got an okay to buy body cams. Our body cams have been in, and it was a good idea. We sat down with Mr. Andre and come up with a new policy and procedures on body cams and recordings, and when recordings could be permitted, when we were allowed not to permit, and just have audio. That policy I passed down to the mayor, and I guess he gave you a copy of it. What we're asking for now is to make it a policy of the police department by vote and get an okay from the board to apply that into our policy of the Livingston Police Department and answer any questions that you have at the time about it.
So I'll entertain a motion, and then we'll have discussion on the camera policy that is in your packet. This was brought up by our insurance company, Public Entity Partners, that it was time to update some of our policies, and the body cam policy was one that needed to be updated again, recommended by our Public Entity Partners, which is our risk management insurers. So is there a motion to accept this policy?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Alderman Bill Linder. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Ken Dotson. Any discussion? All for the motion, let it know by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion pass. Item 3B, Chief Smith.
What was your next one on there?
Weapons.
Oh, yes. So, through the months that we've been going and through the sale process that we went, got rid of some older equipment and stuff, and through the sale that we had, we end up with a little positive money. So, unfortunately, our job, we have to have weapons, and these weapons come out and that we got to have, and we have put in once before and talked about this in prior meetings, and I brought the prior meeting we had with me. We are looking to purchase some rifles. We are looking to purchase, and it's for our patrol and the units that we have, 15U patrol rifles. These patrol rifles are up to date. We have to get a bid on them. The bid's only good for so long. And before we brought this bid up or go ahead and get it okay to purchase, we need to get it okay to spend that money. That money will also become out of that positive money that we had for the sale. Not only those rifles we're also wanting to get 10 less than lethal shotguns. The less than lethal is something that we don't have to really want to point a gun at a man that can't, but there is a point in time you need to stop him, and this less than lethal is a shotgun that we use, and they're very effective. We ain't had a lot of these in a while. We've been a part of a couple situations where these have come in useful. Instead of just having a couple of them at the station is no good for me. I want one per car. I want to have the tools on hand when whatever situation that comes up. Also, there'll be a new policy on the less than lethal that'll be cleared through Mr. Andre and through entity partners there. Also, 6 new Glock pistols. We have some weapons that are out of date, that is several years old, that we're looking to replace. Also, there is a training simulator. The new fad in the training of officers nowadays is mostly almost like a video game. I need to explain it to you. You stand before a screen and they can dictate what situation you come up on. Maybe it's just somebody with a bad day. It shows us how the officers act, how we'll conduct ourselves and out there in the public, and also help us conduct ourselves in a better, positive manner and be better trained. This aid will help us train young officers not been out here a while or have the experience, and we share a lot of experiences through this training aid. This is a very good training aid that you stand before, like I said, a screen, and we can change any situation and put it out there. It's a simulator. I mean, that's what it is. It simulates any situation come upon. We can move it. It don't have to stay stationary. We can take it into several places. Up at our training facility we have, we can put it in a hallway. We can put it in a room. The contact you have is one with another, and it gives you an opportunity. This has been talked about way back there in the situation. The next thing that we kind of talked about a little bit, we're looking also, probably have to do some uniforms somewhere in that matter. That's something we discussed way on back that we talked about a little bit, but it's been a little while to refresh any memory. The next thing is our body armor. We have been looking at our body armor that we have, and there's an expiration date on it. I was really surprised, me too. I talked to Mary a little bit about it way on back there about an expiration date on body armor. But they say 5 years from sweat and all that, and these things can be done slowly, so we can kind of look around and see what kind of price we can. Some places already have those already in place, and it's just getting okay to proceed, because they got to come out and measure the officer that's going to wear it. We do pass down a vest to every officer that comes in there, because it's in the policy procedure they have to wear a vest when they're wearing the blue. And the others that don't wear the blue has to have a vest with them to be able to reach and grab and go if it need be in their vehicle. Some of these don't fit exactly, and this is what brought the concern up not only date, it's fit it for someone else. And we try to give a little slack for this and the coming and going, but we really want to give the officer the opportunity to have what they would need to be able to make their job a little more easier at that time. So what I'm asking, I guess, is an approval to go, hey, I got a round number there if you want that number. It's still from the last numbers that we had. And that number, and some of this could change, these has been a few days that we've had these prices, so they could change, so I don't want to tell you anything wrong and come back and have to ask for more. We're looking at everything all together about $54,000. If my math is correct and we're kind of understanding, and that little, we got about 90,000 left of the money that we raised in selling and all, but Mayor thought we really need to bring this back to the board and let y'all know, because the process could change.
Yeah,
I just want to encourage that.
Right, and thank you, Chief. And so we, just to kind of let you know where we was, we advertised this for bid, and it should be in your packets. But we had no bids submitted. So I told Chief Smith to go out and get him some quotes from the gun manufacturer or the body manufacturer that he seemed to like, or his preference, and that's what has happened. Obviously, by law, we are supposed to bid it. We did advertise for bid. We got no bids, so then you go into the quote system, and that's where we are. As Chief Smith said, the money that this will be coming from is from the surplus sale that we have had not only at a public auction, but on Gov Deals, some things have been sold up there that totals over the amount that he is asking for at this time. So I just want to let you know that we did advertise for bids and we got no bids.
Chief, does this include your body armor? Because what I've got in my agenda is just talking about 12 shotguns, 15 15 times 2 rifles, and 4 pistols.
Yeah.
4 Glocks.
The body worn is a changed thing. They would not give me anything until I said, yes, the board says I can order, and then they'll give me a price, but we put it out for bid, and not a soul would say anything until you kind of get the blessing that the money's going to be spent there, because once they cut it, I mean, it's pretty well done.
So your estimate is $55,000 for
Yes, sir.
all of that? Okay. I move we allow him to go ahead with this purchase.
Motion by Alderman John Clough, not to exceed $55,000. Is that correct? Not to exceed $55,000 on the equipment that Chief Smith just talked about. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Alderman Bill Linder. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Ms. Phillips.
Alderman Langford,
Yes.
Alderman Elder,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dotson,
Yes.
Alderman Linder,
Yes.
Alderman Clough.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Motion passed, unanimous vote. So we'll move on to 3C. Chief Ray Smith, talk about cost of fines, safety school, and accident report. Chief Smith.
Mayor, I've researched and looked out. It seems like a lot of times, and this is, nobody likes to hear things going up, but it has. I hate to use that word so much and people get tired after a while, but for a while, it seems like the city of Livingston is paying for other people's problem. We write a ticket and we hand it out to them, or we work an accident report or whatever the need may be. The charge was so little, and then the city was just picking it up. And I got to looking everywhere else about what's going on with a lot of other places, our neighboring counties and all. It seemed like we was kind of behind. And I'm asking for you to allow the accident reports to be picked up like the State Department. We're on the state website also, of $10. It is front and back pages. We have been for a long time, and this cost, you would really see the cost. The other day we were sitting there and there was 9 boxes of paper sitting in the office that just got delivered to us. We're down to 2 boxes. That's a lot of paper because that's a lot of reports that I got there, and I feel like this would help gain back some of that cost and take it off the city. I mean, if the accident, we don't mind work the wreck, that's our job. We don't mind write the report, but at some point in this, that it is picked up by the insurance company, and they don't, I told them it was going up, and they said, we understand, because the cost has gone on up. The next thing that I'm asking you to change on is the cost of the citation. Our citation is $158 and some change. Our neighboring counties and all that does the same job with us, and everybody that goes out and works the same reports and all, there is about $200+. I'm asking for our fines to be moved from that to $200. It's still sitting there doing the same job, and the job has went up, and things take place, any kind of investigation takes place, any kind of prosecution takes place, or if we have to do anything extra in that. My third thing is changing safety school from just up to $100. It was $60. I'm asking to change safety school to $100 due to the fact I have an officer that's trained, and the material comes from the state of Tennessee for us to put on our own safety school. We have more control of that. A lot of folks, some like the website and some don't. They want to come to a spot, get the full service, and just finish off their time, pay their safety school, and move on. It seems like it even helped the situation we have, because sometimes it may take 4 or 5 days before we get these diplomas. People get upset because they got to come back to our court system. So we're trying to go ahead and eliminate some of that, and also recoup some of the money and costs that's put to the city.
Thank you, Chief. You've heard the report from the chief, going from accident reports that are current $6 to $10, fines on tickets $158.75 to $200, and safety school $60 to $100. Before we have any discussion, I need a motion and a second, and we can have a discussion.
Motion approved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Ken Dotson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bill Linder. Any discussion? Any questions for the chief?
How long does it take you to process that accident report?
It can be up to 5 days.
I mean,
Can you push it?
yeah, how many minutes or hours does that involve? Is it involve copying it and sending, or
No, you have to
doing a
sit down
separate
at a
report?
computer and actually work the report itself. It's a pretty lengthy process. Depends on what the size of the accident report is. You know, there's either 6 or 10 pages.
And the insurance companies are the ones requesting?
No, they didn't request that. They said they understand because the cost has went up. It's been $6 for a long time.
So I guess my question should be, who is paying that currently, that $6?
It's either the insurance company or the person, the folks that's involved. The state of Tennessee, all their accident reports, where it's minor or not, is $10. We've just jumped on the website with the state of Tennessee. You can get your accident report there. It's going to cost you $10, but the city of Livingston still retains $4 of that just to put that report in Titan.
Any more discussion for the chief?
The city don't do their safety school, right?
We used to. COVID come in. We came in during that time to find out what could we do to still have services and still have the safety school, still be able to give that. At that time, we had to go online. That was the only way that we could go on to that. And there's a lot of folks with a big learning curve that took place because they had to learn to go and sit in a class, and the class is 4 hours, and online there, anything was to disconnect, you have to start all over again. We worked with the company to try to get the cost down so it wouldn't cost them a lot of headaches or problems, but it seems like it's getting to a point now where having more wants to be here in Livingston, do their school, and be a part of that. We used to do it, and then, of course, COVID came, and it changed a whole lot of venture in the way that things done. It's easier. It is even more convenient to come here and do the class. 4 hours, pay it, you're done. You don't have to make any other steps. There's not any other opportunity or anywhere else, and it's just ideal. Sometimes it works on the internet, and you know how that is. Sometimes it don't.
Where is the class held? Here?
No, unfortunately, we are going to hopefully go up to the chamber and use their room there to sit in and do the training. They'll sit through it, and it's a certified officer that's sitting there that's been properly trained to teach about the safeties.
Sounds good. Looks like we're going to be using the chamber.
Surprise, Shannon.
We talked about that. I just hadn't had an opportunity to talk to Shannon. So, but we got a motion and second on the floor. Any more questions? All right, roll call vote, Ms. Phillips.
Alderman Elder. Vice Mayor Dotson.
Yes.
Alderman Linder.
Yes.
Alderman Clough.
Yes.
Alderman Langford.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Motion passed. Thank you, Chief.
I got one more, Mayor. I always like to leave it on a good note. One big positive note that we have been awarded through Bill Lee as our SROs, School Resource Officer. And I like this program because in 1998, my start was here at Livingston City as an SRO at the high school, and I traveled around and taught there and done all other things 26 years ago. Been a while, a lot of water on the bridge. So, and I've always noticed it's always been a fight for funding. Everybody tried to get together to fund these in the world we live in today. Just the first day of school, not just right there, they had a problem down toward Memphis in the school system. So Bill Lee got to looking around in the Nashville incident, got to looking around how he could help small towns and places that are having a hard time to get SROs funded. We applied for the funding and received it. Received $75,000 per school for 3 officers to be there full-time at events. $225,000 is what is awarded. That takes $225,000 that you don't have to worry about in the budget to cover these men and these women that are over there protecting things that we believe is the most special thing in this world is our children. So with that due, the officers, their overtime, it'll cover up training, it will take care of any special training they would need, uniforms, weapons. If there's anything, and they encourage, if there's anything else need to be, file for it. They're out to help every small community or every school system to have an SRO actively in the school. And my heart's there with it because that's where I started at. We also have an officer that is certified in DARE that we're bringing back. The DARE program has changed up for 26 years that'll go in and help teach young people a lot about the pressures of life. And it's a great program and we're going to get behind it and push it as hard as we can. But I thought by the $225,000 grant that we sat down and wrote up, that'd be a good positive thing for the city.
Congrats, that's a big deal.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
1 year funding or multi-year?
This will be a multiple year. This is a constant, as long as we follow in their process, as long as we give them every kind of entity to show them that we're using that for that means and that funds and be seen at school and keep reporting to them that he has put this in his budget to continue as long as their budget can hold it up. It was very worrisome this year about the budget, and thanks to the mayor, he said we'll get it one way or another, make it through there. But here we are today, not having to worry about it, that we've got the money through Bill Lee's office, State of Tennessee.
If you remember, last year, we took we had to spend some, make some amendments to the budget that last year there was a grant for SROs that went away, expired. So we had to pick up the salaries for the police department and our school resource officers. So this is kind of giving us some money back that we've already paid. But the chief is right. The money that we had for our police department was already budgeted. So this is a major shot in the arm for SRO system. So,
Thank you, Mayor.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Also, Chief Smith wanted me to talk to you just a little bit about the bid that we was going to get for the vehicle that was on state bid. Well, it was on state bid, but at another state. So in time, we will set that out for a public bid for the truck that we was talking about last time, okay? Thank you. Is that right, Ray? Did I say that right?
Yes, sir. They would. You found that they have a state bid, but it's not in Tennessee, and they got to be listed in Tennessee. And I took it for granted that it was. That's my fault. Not nobody, but the mayor caught that and he said, "Hey, we need to really clear out." So some of you I was able to get to and tell, "Hey, I might have mislead you. Don't want to do that." But we still have that money. That money can still be done that way. We just got to get a bid for that to get a truck and stuff for the fire department to have as a first responder vehicle.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, item number 4 is a bid on the pickleball court fencing. We did advertise for bid, open up the bid July 25th for Claude's Fencing in the price of $35,250. You can see under there it says material price good for 10 days. think we're on day 8. So we will order tomorrow, but that's, this right here is just another prime example on these prices starting to kind of rise, and this is 10 days only. But anyway, enough of that. $35,250. Money will be coming out of the ARPA funds, like we said when we did the paving. Also, the pickleball courts is in on that. So,
Move we approve.
motion made by Alderman John Clough. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bruce Elder. Any discussion? All for the motion, let it know by saying aye. All opposed, like sign, motion pass. Okay, item number 5 is I got Mr. Rodriguez, the fire department, the pay scale.
Mayor, board members, good evening. My name's Gavin Rodriguez. I'm an engineer for the Livingston Fire Department. I volunteered for the city for 10 years before making the decision to become a full-time firefighter with Livingston. When I did that almost 2 years ago, I'm sorry, hold on a second. I volunteered for the city 10 years before making the decision to become a full-time firefighter with the city of Livingston. When I did that almost 2 years ago now, I definitely wasn't for the money, as I was well aware of the subpar pay, but chose to do it for the love of our town and helping others. What I did expect was respect and fairness. I have begun to believe I was sadly mistaken to expect that. The city's recent release of the new pay scale has clearly made many city firefighters feel disrespected. The city's decisions are destroying the fire department, as many are now looking for better opportunities with other county or city departments. The city has set a fire, and this one we cannot put out. To some, we're just a number. Until you need us when your home is on fire, we become more than a number. We become the only hope of saving the only photo of a beloved family member, the last memory of an irreplaceable time in your life, or a loved one you've lost, the beloved family pet, or God forbid, even you or your loved ones. I feel the city has the best fire department it's ever had. They have built a great team and department. They have made some big steps in adding some much-needed personnel. In years past, they were dependent on volunteers, but those days are coming to an end, as volunteers are a dying breed. When I joined as a volunteer, you would have 15 to 20 firefighters show up at a scene, with a mix of volunteer and full-time employees. At that time, the city had 6 full-time firefighters. Well, now, even with the growth we've had, 12 full-time staff, you have a mix of 6 to 10 volunteers and full-time show up for a fire call. Now, because of the pay scale, they stand to lose a number of those full-time firefighters. You may not think it's a big deal, or maybe that replacing these firemen won't be a problem, but I think in time, you'll be as sadly mistaken by that as we have been disappointed with the current new pay scale. With that being said, I have a few questions. I'd like to see if anyone sitting at that table can answer for me, because I've heard a lot of hearsay and some downright ridiculous reasons on why the fire department didn't receive a higher increase in pay. One of the best ones is they don't have much responsibility. So we don't have as much responsibility as a meter reader or a secretary. And we do a lot of secretarial things. We have to do reports. Those reports then have to be logged in Excel spreadsheets. And even a few of us have written grants for the city. After the initial pay scale release, we were told there was another meeting with the pay scale consultant. And then what they came up with was that a new pay scale had been set for new hires, which was significantly higher than any current certified firefighters are making. In addition, current employees could not be brought up to that level of pay despite experience, required training, and certification that utilize our personal time to prepare for. Who would think that's even remotely right to do to current employees? So with that, I would like to know, can anybody explain this to me?
Ms. Bryant, can you come up, please, to the podium? Ms. Bryant is with HR Solutions. The City Council hired HR Solutions to do a pay scale for the city of Livingston, and so there has been some questions that we have talked about, and so just to go just a little bit deeper, we did find an error that had took place in the fire department, and what happened was there was only correct me if I'm wrong, 3 positions, I believe, only in the pay scale. One was fire chief, assistant chief, and firefighter. So what we have done now, and we changed that immediately when it was brought to our attention, and gave additional raises out to where they should have been, according to HR Solutions is pay scale, and she can talk more about that here in a minute. So now we have the fire chief, assistant chief, firefighter 1, firefighter 2, firefighter 3, and firefighter 4. And of course, each step, whatever step you are at, will bring you additional money. Yes, that's correct. So I think the question was, Ms. Bryant, if I understood Fireman Rodriguez right, is the new hires would make more money than current employees, and can you talk about that?
Sure, I'll be happy to. So let me go back for just a minute and let me just kind of put some context to this, okay? So the way that we ended up with 3 positions in the fire department to begin with is because we used the current payroll system, we used the titles that were in the current payroll system, and we looked at every employee that was employed by the city of Livingston. And that was based on the payroll data that came out of the current system. And that system showed either a firefighter, it didn't designate 1, 2, or 3 or anything like that, a captain, and an assistant supervisor, okay? And so those were the ones that we went to the market and we used the job descriptions to compare them, so we were comparing apples to apples. So when we came back with the report, Mr. Dial came back to us and said, but I have some additional positions. And so we questioned that to say, okay, no, wait a minute, because these are the only ones we have out of the payroll system. And so that's when he informed us that he actually has a firefighter 2, a reserve engineer, an engineer, and I'm trying to think what the other one may have been. And so when we learned that information, we went and we pulled data for that, for those additional positions. And we added that data. So when we did the wage survey, what we did is we looked across Middle Tennessee, and we looked at other locations that were your size, other cities and towns that were your size, but we also looked at much larger cities and towns because you're pulling applicants from small towns, medium-sized towns, and large towns. So we looked at all of those. And when I came back with the report, I took an average of what small towns, medium-sized towns, and large cities are paying across Middle Tennessee. And I used an average of all 3 of those for the wage survey. I did not just take small towns and use that one. Okay, and again, that's because you're pulling employees or candidates from across the state. And so then we use the average to set a range, and a range includes the minimum pay for a position, a midpoint, which is basically the average, that's what we use the average for, and then a maximum for that position. And we built a range around that. Then what we did was we put together what's called a step progression, which is similar to what you've always used. So for example, previously, if I look at what you had previously, and let me see if I can locate this rather quickly. So in your fire department, previously you had a fire captain, a firefighter, and a fire chief. Those were the 3 pay scales that I was given for your city. So in that pay scale, a firefighter, starting pay for a firefighter previous to our wage survey was $14 an hour. Okay? And then after they had been here a year, they would get a 15-cent an hour increase to $14.15. And that's what your firefighters were being paid. So when we conducted the wage survey, we came in and the competitive pay for that position, the minimum we set for that firefighter one was $15 an hour, and that was a training wage, all right? So the training wage for someone being hired as a firefighter with no experience, with no previous background, it might be somebody just out of high school, it might be somebody right out of college, whatever the case may be, but they don't have any experience, they would start at $15 an hour. And then when they completed their training, and their 90 days or whatever your introductory period is, they would go to $15.30 per hour, okay? So it's $1.30 an hour increase over what they were previously making. Then we also built in, so remember I said a few minutes ago, your current, or your, I guess prior pay grade, people got 15 cents per year pay increase up to 30 years. So if I were hired as a firefighter under your old plan, I started at $14 an hour, and after I had been here 30 years, I would make $18.56. Okay? Now, in the new wage survey, as I mentioned, we put in place a $15 minimum training wage, but a $15.30 minimum firefighter one pay. All right? And after 10 years, they would be at $19.11. Okay? Now, Mayor Hayes asked me to run this out 30 years because your prior one was 30 years. So under the current one, and what we did is the average increase. Now, I'll be honest with you, I can't speak to what's going to happen 10 years from now. I can't speak to what's going to happen 30 years. But right now, the average increase is averaging about 3 or 4 cents per year. And that's across just about all industries.
Percent?
Yes.
Cents or percent?
Percent. 3% per year. So when I ran this out for 30 years, I used 3% per year, which means a firefighter one would make, after 30 years, $31.31. Versus under your previous system, after 30 years, they'd make $18.56. Okay? So now, let's address, so that kind of gives you some background. Now, what we did further when Mr. Dial brought up that I have a firefighter too, and they have certifications, and we absolutely respect the job that you do. We absolutely respect all of you as first responders. We depend on you, and you're 100% correct about that. So what we recommended was that if you are a firefighter 1 and you get promoted to a firefighter 2, then what we have recommended is that wherever you are in your step progression, that at that point you would take 2 steps, a 2-step promotion. So let me explain that, and I apologize. I know numbers are hard to hear and not look at. But let's just say I am a firefighter 1. I am making $15.30. I am at step 1. I'm making $15.30. I get all my certifications to be a firefighter 2. What we've recommended is that you get a 2-step promotion with that, so you would then go to $16.07. Okay? That is a 6%, by and large, that's a 6% increase for that promotion. And then every year with the performance evaluation, so we did also recommend performance evaluations, you would be able to, the steps are 3%. So I go to $16.07. A year later at merit increase time, as long as I'm performing, I go to $16.48. Okay? So that's kind of the system that we put in place and we recommended. Now let me address this question of somebody coming in who could make more, all right? And I'm just going to tell you, I've dealt with HR for 30 years, and that is absolutely possible. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. If you, so one of your aldermen is a physician, nurse pay. There has been a shortage of nurses for many, many years. Nurse pay has been skyrocketing, as has a lot of different pays. So the city of Livingston, one of the reasons we recommended what we did is because, quite frankly, your pay over the years has not kept up with the market. When you are offering a 15-cent per hour increase each year, that's 15 cents, not 15%, okay? When you're offering 15 cents per year, you're not keeping up with the market. So we tried to build into our wage plan keeping up with the market at 3% per year, okay, to help you. And what we did was, and I know one of you, and I apologize, I'm not sure which one, but you had a question, and I want you to know that Mayor Hayes has gone to bat for all of you, okay? Because we had someone on this council who asked the question. We agreed to a 4% increase, and you did. But what we also said was, we were going to move employees to the bottom of the grade or 4%, whichever was more. So what you have or had was you had some firefighters who were making $14.30 per hour, and some of them were less. Some were $14.15 per hour. We agreed that we were going to give a 4% increase or to the bottom of the grade, whichever was more. So your firefighters moved from $14.15 or $14.30 or wherever they were to the bottom of the grade. So they moved to $15.30. So they got basically $1.15 an hour, and it fluctuated a little bit, but we took them to the bottom of the grade. So now they are, and you've got some others, and I'd be glad to talk about it in private, of course, but they're at $15.30. Now, we also looked, because I do want to be sensitive to the fact that you have years of service, okay? So we looked at your firefighters, and you have an engineer who's been here since 2017, and so we did put them at a step higher than that $15.30. Your other firefighters, by and large, have been here for 2 or 3 years. So we're still within, we're not exactly where we would like them to be, but we have to be sensitive to your overall city budget as well. And that was one of the things that one of you asked, and it was a great question. Hey, we thought it was going to be 4% across the board. Because your wages have not kept up with the market, you are grossly underpaying some of your people. So we had to get them up to at least be competitive, and that's where we brought them to that $15.30. Now they will get, as long as they're performing, that 3% increase every year. Now again, I can't tell you what's going to happen in 20 or 30. I can't tell you what's going to happen in 5 years, okay? But what I have recommended to Mayor Hayes is that I would look at your wages every couple of years to see what's going on in the market. If 3% is keeping up, we're good. We've got a plan for that. If you have something like nurses and there's a nurse shortage or something, and all of a sudden you've got wages in some area that are changing at a more rapid pace, then what we want to do, we may have to go to the market and we may have to look at that and we may have to adjust some of this. So Mayor Hayes has an open mind to doing those types of things. So what we also built into this, because you've got to be able to recruit new people, and we understand that. And so what we have built into this is none of my cities or towns, and I have a few who had a policy that if they hired somebody new, didn't matter how many years of experience they had to start at that $15 an hour. And if I've got somebody making $22 an hour, you're not going to be able to hire them if they have to go back to $15 an hour. You're just not, okay? So what we have said is, and this does make it possible, it is called wage compression, which means your salaries are not keeping up with the market. And so it is entirely possible that somebody who came in, and I know this has been the concern, if you had somebody from another town or city, let's say you had somebody from Davidson County and they came in, they've got 5 years of service, and they are a firefighter 2, all right? We would look at your internal, and by the way, you don't have a firefighter 2 that I'm aware of. Now, again, I'm going by the payroll stuff, okay? That has 5 years of service. I've got an engineer who has 6 years of service, but I don't have a firefighter 2 with 6 years or 5 years of service. But at 5 years of service, it is possible to bring in a firefighter 2 at $16.89. And I have someone else with 2 or 3 years of service that is making $15.30 or $15.68. Okay? So it is not a perfect system. Our commitment is to try to continue to be aware of what is competitive in the market, to try to balance the needs of the city and your citizens and their budgets with your needs and those types of things. I do want to call out that part of what we're worried about has not happened yet. And what I asked Mr. Dial to do is if he's interviewing somebody and he has a question and he has a concern, to give me a call. And we'll sit down. We'll look at the credentials of the person you're interviewing. We'll look at how many years experience they have. We'll look at what their current salary is. We'll look at what your internal equity is, and then we will try to balance that to the best of our ability so that you can continue to hire people. Our goal and our hope is that all of you who are currently here, we create a progression, whether it's from that 1 to a 2 to a reserve engineer to an engineer to an assistant chief. We create a progression so that our internal people can move up and be paid more, and we're only hiring for inexperienced firefighters, and that will help balance that out. Okay? It's a long explanation to a question, but I wanted to give you some background. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I'll be happy to, if I missed the question or whatever, let me know, and I'll be happy to reply to it. Okay?
So, Miss Cindy?
Yes.
When we spoke before, just to understand where you got these ranges from, you got metrics from towns like Livingston, towns like Cookeville, towns like Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, Jackson, Clarksville, and you took the average of those.
I did.
And that became your average. And your minimum recommendation was 80% of that average.
Correct.
And your maximum recommendation was 120%.
Correct.
Of that average.
That is correct.
Okay, so, and then I suppose it's up to each individual municipality how they assign their steps. A step is not necessarily equivalent to 1 year of service, as you just said, because you said, for example, a firefighter 1 that moves to firefighter 2, your recommendation was then to take 2 steps.
That's correct, because what we did is we put in place some guidelines for you that looked at promotions, lateral move, demotions, all of that to give you some structure around, well, if these things happen, how do we handle it within the pay system? So we built those guidelines. Now, if you're talking annual merit increases or whatever the case may be, normally that's done once a year. So that's why we put steps at once a year. But if you have a one-off that might be a promotion or something like that, then yes, we escalate you through those steps more quickly.
I guess in general, since David, you asked for the pay scale to be a topic of discussion, and you look at these increases, if we keep all the positions in the city, it's going to be a huge part of the budget if we have people that stay for a long time, and that is a concern to lock something in place, and it has nothing to do with whether individual firefighters, police officers, gas workers, whatever, deserve to be paid more, but you could conceivably outpace your ability to even pay for that.
That was my point. The amount of these pay scales and everything with the money that we have coming in from taxpayers, I don't know, we would pay it.
So this is, not to interrupt you, Doc, but this is a concerned what every city manager, every city mayor, and county mayor across the state of Tennessee. If you look at any of the news agencies, if you look across the Upper Cumberland, taxes have been raised for employee pay. And I can tell you the tax increase that we've got will go 100% to the pay. So, and this is why it is very important that the chamber and the county and the city work together for more retail sales tax. That's why we've got the retail coach, to try to bring in more sales tax dollars where you don't always hit the property owners. That's a goal, is try to get more sales tax numbers in here. The budget is a tale of the tape, Doc. You're exactly right. I mean, if it comes budget season next time, and we can't go up the 3% that we said we would, then that pay scale could be simply placed on hold until we can afford it. But so that's why we need to be as frugal with it.
This lady do this survey and everything.
The meeting. Yeah, you missed that meeting. Yeah, it did come up here and you missed the meeting.
Well, one of the things, and certainly I didn't mean to give the impression by expressing concern about whether we could pay for all this, that we don't need first responders. I guess the question in my mind is comparative importance of some of these positions, because I suppose we could sit here and argue endlessly over how much a receptionist is worth compared to a firefighter, for instance.
What's the difference between the police department and first responders? They're paid the same years. What's the percentage?
Thank you. Yes, I will, because I turned that off. I'm pulling my computer back up, so if you give me just a second, I'll be glad to tell you.
Is every department and everyone added to this pay scale?
Yes. Yes, sir. And we went through to be able to show if you add positions in the future that were not part of the survey, how do we add them into the system itself?
I would just like to say that, thank you for making that clear, first of all. And I guess it's somewhat reassuring to know that the numbers that you came up with are based on what people are actually getting paid across the state. It's not just numbers that, it's what in medicine we call evidence-based data. It's real. It's not just what you think, but it's what people are actually making. And certainly I'm glad that it looks like with what has been suggested, we're not at the minimum. We're at the average. Is that correct? We're at or very close to the average.
The average is your higher step. So we gave you a step progression that goes over 30 years. So your average hits somewhere around step 5 or step 6. Okay. So there are people at the minimum, and as I said, we set the minimum at $15 an hour. That was a training wage. We set the step 1 at $15.30, and then you work your way up, and we'll have average in about, if they get an increase every year, it'll be after about 5 years that they hit the average, and then we continue on from there. Now, what we also did is we gave you pay grades. So a firefighter 1 is a pay grade 4. If you look at police officers are a pay grade 6. Police officers are a higher pay grade than a firefighter, okay? And then an officer and a school resource officer are both the same pay grade, which is a 6. A master patrol officer is a 7. A detective, investigator, or sergeant is an 8. And then the fire, as well as the lieutenant for the police department. So the fire was an assistant supervisor, is at a pay grade 9. Police captain and assistant fire chief are at a pay grade 10. And then,
Out here on the street, how many dollars more does he make than our average fireman?
let's see. If I look at the officer and school resource officer, they're making not quite $3 an hour more than an entry-level firefighter.
So an entry-level policeman and an entry-level firefighter, I think that's apples for apples. I think that's what Mr. Langford was talking about, I think.
Well, again, the entry-level firefighter is at $15.30. The entry-level officer is at $18.23. And the reason for that is even though we consider an officer and a firefighter, we may look at those as the same. Those job descriptions are not the same, and their relative value within the wage survey is not the same. So that's why they're in different pay grades. Okay? Now, if you wanted to go a step further, we did not do this. Normally how we put jobs in a pay grade is we do something that is called a job evaluation. And what that means is that the city of Livingston would create a list of factors, if you will. And those are factors that are valuable to the city of Livingston. And then what we do is we work with employees and we work with leaders to go through, I use a point factor analysis to assign points to each of those factors that are important to the city of Livingston. We assign points to those factors. We go through it. We have employees as well as leaders involved in that. And once we have points assigned to it, then we assign them to labor grades based on the number of points for jobs. So, for example, and I use this quite often, if I'm going to do this, most people could perceive that a receptionist and a CEO are valued differently within an organization. And that's not to say your receptionist is not important. It's just when you measure it based on the factors, which would include education, experience, those are always on there. And then you get into working conditions, you get into communication, you get into a variety of other things. Those are easy, right? Because I've got some of my lower level positions and I got my higher level positions. Those are easy. The question is, and what a job evaluation answers is all those things are in the middle. How do I differentiate between those? What's the difference between a pay grade 6 and a pay grade 7? Okay, those get harder. That's why we use a point factor analysis. What we used to slot your people into pay grades was the pay data itself. So we looked at other cities and towns, small, medium, and large, pay their police higher than they pay their fire, on average. Okay, so that's why they're separated in this.
I have one last question.
Yes, sir.
In your gathering data, speaking to the firefighters, we, at your suggestion, went from 3 positions to 6. Did you see that there are a lot more positions in larger municipalities than 6 positions, or do you not have that data?
Let me look real quick, and I will see if I can. I will tell you what data I have. Let's see here. Okay, so when we look at public safety as a whole, there are a number of positions. So there are EMS positions, which some of your firefighters may do some of that, and we considered that because in talking with Mr. Dial, there are some duties that overlap there for your city. You don't necessarily have, quote, an EMT or an AEMT. And so we looked at some of those. So we looked at small, medium, and large. Then in emergency services or public safety, we have fire. So by and large, what are the most common are a fire chief, an assistant fire chief, you have both of those, a fire captain, a battalion shift commander, a fire marshal, a fire lieutenant, an engineer, a firefighter 2, which is a certified firefighter, a firefighter 1, who is a trainee or a certified firefighter 1, and a firefighter/paramedic. So those are the most common that we have. Yes. Yes, sir. Other questions?
Yes, I'll just use the firefighters. We've been sitting here saying if someone's more qualified to come in, they can start at a higher pay. Why not post the jobs and give the younger
That's our goal.
opportunity to fulfill that instead of putting someone in front of them?
No, I agree. That's our goal. When I said that we want progressions from a firefighter 1 to a firefighter 2 to a reserve engineer to an engineer, our goal is that we are only, or you are only, hiring for that entry-level firefighter, and that you have progression so that people can grow. So that is absolutely what we've built into the program. All I'm saying is we could have a firefighter 2. You have an opening for a firefighter 2. You already have firefighter 2s. Now, if you've got a firefighter 1 who could be promoted to a 2, absolutely we could do that. But if you have a firefighter 2 that applies, that's moved into the area with 5 years or 10 years of experience, we want to be able to consider them as well.
I understand that. In today's world, everything's just went crazy as far as labor. Listen to your radio. Everybody surrounding counties from 10 to 30% increases or cents on their property tax. Your restaurants, look at your food. But I guess my biggest concern is bumping these people. If we come in here and do a budget, and we set that budget, and then we hire 6 people at X amount of dollars, how are we going to meet that budget?
And your budget would be a consideration into whether or not you're going to hire somebody. So again, we're debating things that haven't happened yet. We're debating worst case scenario, and what I would tell you to do is give the system an opportunity to work. If you get to the point where you can't hire experience because your budget can't afford it, then create an internal training program, hire entry-level firefighters, grow your own firefighters, give them a chance to move up, and then hire entry-level and train them, because then you can afford that level.
And I think that's what's currently being done right now, is a system like that. Any other questions for Ms. Bryant?
True.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant.
Sir.
So, any other business, not,
Before we move on to the business, number one, I don't think we can afford these.
Thank you, Alderman Langford. Any other public comments? I think Ms. Cooper had a, yeah, go ahead.
All right, thank you all for letting me speak. I guess I have a question on who determines public parking? Who can do it, block public parking, and who cannot?
So that's always been my position, and the chief and I usually get together if the public parking is on the side of the streets, I guess is what you're talking about. If it's not marked as public parking, you're parking on the right-of-way of that city street, so that's.
Correct. So that's, I guess, like I called you and Chief Smith about blocking in front of the Iron and Oak.
That's right.
For our event.
That's right.
I mean,
and I gave you permission
there's
to do
public
that.
parking that's blocked all the time. I guess maybe I draw the short straw and got a bad neighbor that wanted to report me for it. So who determines that? Who determines who can block parking and who cannot?
That'd be me.
Okay.
I gave you permission.
Okay, but
Yeah.
Ray, did we not have to, we had to move?
We ended up with several complaints about public parking, not having enough parking down there. And I went and spoke with Ms. Cooper about it. And Ms. Cooper said that we was going to move them to try not to have an argument at all. But yes, we had several complaints about her blocking it. She had an event down there, and we tried to help every event, be cordial with their neighbor and all down there. And I thought that's what everybody do, is cordial with one another, and unfortunately it didn't work that way. But Ms. Cooper did go out there and move her barrels out of the way and open it up for public parking.
Yeah. I don't think you or I made her do that, though. I think you volunteered to do that. I didn't. I gave you permission to do it.
No, I was asked to move. I was asked to move the.
By me?
No. I went and asked Ms. Cooper if it would
Yes.
be a bother since there were so many complaints. And Ms. Cooper said, well, they're coming up here, and I did say, whenever they call, I'll come up there and help you block and put up stuff and all that.
Well, that's the problem. The parking, as you know, it's a problem. So the employees that work in the businesses across the street, they park on the Iron and Oak side. So they're there from opening to close. They're there when I'm needing the parking, so you go and ask them that they need to move. I mean, because obviously they're not going to move.
We have been accommodating for any business
Very,
in Livingston
very.
that needs to have assistance, whether it's construction to their building. That's happened in a lot of cases, or if there's a particular event that is going to happen. We've been have tried very hard to be very accommodating to each business when they call in. Okay, so when you called me, I gave you permission.
You did. You gave me permission.
To park in front of the Iron and Oak because you had a 32-foot tour bus coming in later on that evening.
Yeah, they ended up changing. But, like I said, I work with Americanaville. I don't know what these artists are going to drive. That's what I was told was coming. That's what I communicated with you all.
Yeah,
this problem is going to arise again. We've got Dina Carter coming November 18th. It's already sold out concert. We're asking her to sign a second date, hopefully the next night. We have got Lori Morgan coming in December. This is going to continue being a problem for us. When, and yes, I did make the neighbor a little bit mad because I just called the restaurant and summoned 6 cars to come and protect my parking. That way, when I needed to move, so the artists could come in, because they have to unload this heavy equipment. You can't pack that stuff around the building.
We deal with the same thing when we have concerts at Central Park. There is a reserved area there, and the fence is open because.
And we're all we've never complained. When you have stuff in Central Park, they're all over us. They're taking up the restaurant parking. We've never complained. We are gracious enough that there's enough parking in the downtown area for us all to use.
That's right.
There's going to be certain times that somebody has to have access to the building. Like you said, for repairs. They're old buildings. They're going to have repairs. So, if I'm that bad neighbor, and throw me a temper tantrum to move these cars.
If you have any more artists and it needs to be blocked, call me, it'll be blocked.
Well, it's
Okay.
coming, so.
All right. No
it's-
problem.
All right. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Chief Dow, you want to speak?
Yeah, I just caught a little of this deal about this pay scale thing. One thing I want to make clear, these positions were submitted when MTAS done the pay scale study 3 or 4 years ago to be put in there. They did not get put in there then by MTAS because they said the positions was not there that didn't need to be put in. This year they was represented. I sat down with the lady right in here and went over every bit of it. And they still didn't get put in there. I just want to make that clear that that was communicated to her when we met. It was communicated with her the second time when we met right back yonder. And she admitted that she'd overlooked it. Thank you.
And the problem was fixed then, wasn't it, Chief? I know there were several positions added.
There was some stuff fixed. I don't know if the positions have been added yet or not, if Phyllis has done that or not. We was waiting to work on some of the job descriptions.
Yeah, there's still some more work to do, but they was added. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public that'd like to address the council? Okay, if not, someone needs to make a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Alderman John Clough, second by Vice Mayor Ken Dotson. All for the motion, let it know by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. We're adjourned.